This video is for educational purposes only, not medical advice. Always consult your doctor or a qualified professional before using any plant-based remedy, especially if you have sensitive skin or are pregnant. You know the smell, that greasy chemical bug spray smell that clings to your skin for the rest of the evening, no matter how many times you wash your hands. You know the candle too, lit early, burned down to nothing by 9, and somehow the mosquitoes still found your ankles anyway. And you know that sound. That thin, high-pitched whine, circling somewhere near your ear the second the lights go out. Always just far enough away that swatting at it does nothing. Always just close enough that sleep suddenly feels impossible. And you know what comes after. That one bite that itches for 3 straight days, the kind you catch yourself scratching without even realizing it, at the worst possible moments, in the middle of a conversation, right as you're finally drifting off, during a meeting where you can't exactly excuse yourself to go find relief. It's almost midnight, and Carol is scratching that exact bite on her ankle for the 3rd time in 10 minutes, wide awake, listening to that same thin whine, circling somewhere near the ceiling, annoyed at herself for not lighting that candle earlier. Even though, if she's honest, the candle never really worked anyway. Here's what Carol doesn't know yet, and what almost nobody watching this knows either. There is something that solves both of these problems at once, keeps the bugs away in the first place, and calms the itch afterward, if you're too late. It isn't a spray, it isn't a candle, it doesn't come in a can or a tin at all. And it's mentioned, by name, in something Jesus himself said, to a room full of people who all immediately understood exactly what he meant, without a single word of explanation. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. But by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is. Exactly where it's mentioned in Scripture. One simple way to grow it in your own yard this summer, and exactly what to reach for if, like Carol, you're already scratching a bite at midnight tonight. If you're new here, subscribe to Ancestral Fix. Every week, we find what the ancient world knew and what your body still needs. Stay with me. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, Jesus criticizes the religious leaders of his day for tithing even the smallest garden herbs, mint and a second herb, while neglecting justice and the love of God. That second herb, the one nobody in that room needed explained, was rue. Known botanically as Ruta graveolens, it's a hardy, blue-green, strongly aromatic shrub native to the Mediterranean and Balkan region, exactly where it would have grown in gardens throughout the biblical world. Common enough, valuable enough, to be grown deliberately in ordinary gardens in 1st century Judea, common enough that tithing it down to the smallest sprig was apparently a genuine practice worth criticizing. It smells intense and distinctive, sharp and slightly bitter, the kind of scent that lingers strongly on your fingers if you brush against the leaves. That intense smell is really the whole story. Rue produces strong essential oils, specifically as a natural defense mechanism against insects and grazing animals, and traditional Mediterranean and Middle Eastern gardening practices have used it for centuries as a companion plant, grown near vegetables and outdoor sitting areas, specifically because its strong scent tends to deter mosquitoes, flies, and other common garden pests. This wasn't folklore without a mechanism behind it. The same volatile oils responsible for rue's strong smell are generally understood to be unappealing to many insects' sense of smell, which is part of why the plant has persisted in traditional pest deterrent gardening across so many different cultures and centuries. Ever wonder why your grandmother's garden, or her grandmother's, always seemed to have a few unusual, strong-smelling plants tucked in among the vegetables? This is likely part of why. This wasn't limited to the biblical world either. Ancient Roman writers, including Pliny the Elder, documented rue extensively, both as a culinary herb in small quantities and as a plant grown near homes and gardens for its practical properties. Medieval European herb gardens, particularly those maintained in monasteries, commonly included rue in their standard planting layouts. positioned deliberately near doorways and windows where insects were most likely to enter. Across cultures separated by centuries and geography, the same basic instinct kept reappearing. Plant the strong-smelling shrub near the places people actually spend their time. Let's move into why this matters for Carol's actual patio table and why she keeps ending up scratching her ankle anyway. Citronella candles work primarily by releasing citronella oil into the air when burned, and research on their effectiveness has generally found them to provide only modest, localized protection, largely dependent on wind conditions and how close you're sitting to the flame. A living rue plant, by contrast, doesn't need to be lit or burned at all. Simply having it growing nearby, or crushing a few leaves and rubbing them lightly on exposed skin or clothing, releases the same natural oils citronella candles are trying to replicate, without any wax, wick, or flame involved, and without needing the wind to cooperate. Now, before you rush out to rub rue all over your arms, an important caution belongs here. Rue contains compounds that can cause skin irritation or increased sun sensitivity in some people, particularly with direct, prolonged skin contact, especially in strong sunlight. It should never be ingested in any significant quantity, and pregnant women should avoid it entirely, since it has a documented history of use in much larger doses as an abortifacient in traditional medicine. This is a plant to grow and enjoy for its scent and pest deterrent qualities, handled with basic care, not something to consume or apply liberally without caution. So how would you actually use it? The simplest approach is simply growing it. Rue is a hardy, drought-tolerant perennial that thrives in poor soil and full sun, requiring very little maintenance once established, and a single plant can fill a good-sized area with its scent over the course of a season. It typically grows into a rounded, shrubby form about 2 to 3 feet tall, with distinctive blue-green, lobed leaves that make it easy to identify once you know what to look for. Planting it near a patio, doorway, or seating area allows its natural aroma to work passively, the same way Mediterranean gardeners have used it for centuries, without any ongoing effort beyond the occasional trim to keep its shape. For a more direct approach, a few crushed leaves rubbed gently on the ankles or ends of sleeves, avoiding sensitive or sun-exposed skin, mimics how the plant has traditionally been used as a personal deterrent, though a patch test on a small area first is always a wise precaution given the skin sensitivity concerns. Some traditional preparations also involved hanging small bundles of dried rue near windows and doorways, allowing the concentrated scent to work passively at entry points without any direct skin contact at all. A gentler option worth considering if you'd rather avoid handling the fresh leaves directly. One more practical note: rue is toxic to cats in significant quantities, so if you have outdoor cats or a curious pet, plant it somewhere they're unlikely to chew on directly. The same common sense caution you'd apply to any number of ordinary garden plants. Of course, keeping insects away is only half the problem. If you've already been bitten and you're dealing with the itch, the way Carol was at midnight, rue isn't the plant for that job, given its own skin sensitivity concerns. There's a different, gentler plant worth knowing for this specific purpose, and it's likely growing in your yard already, uninvited. Common plantain, the low, ribbed leaf weed that grows in nearly every lawn and along nearly every sidewalk crack, has a long folk tradition across many cultures of being crushed and applied directly to minor skin irritations, including insect bites. If Carol had known this, that midnight scratching session could have ended in about 2 minutes flat, with nothing more than a short walk to her own front lawn. Simply crush a fresh leaf between your fingers until the juices release, then hold it directly against the bite for a few minutes. This is a topical folk remedy passed down through generations, not a clinically proven treatment, and it's worth trying on a small area first to make sure you don't have any personal sensitivity to it. For anyone dealing with a more significant reaction, swelling, or an allergic response to a bite, that's exactly the kind of situation where seeing a doctor matters more than any garden remedy. There's something worth sitting with in the fact that Carol's citronella candle, burning quietly on her patio table, is a relatively modern commercial product, while the plant it's chemically trying to imitate was common enough in the ancient world to be mentioned, almost in passing, in the middle of a much larger point Jesus was making to religious leaders about priorities. Rue wasn't the point of that passage. It was simply so ordinary, so obviously present in everyday gardens, that Jesus could reference it without a single word of explanation and expect everyone listening to know exactly what he meant. This is really the same quiet theme running through so much of what we cover on this channel. It's rarely about a single product being good or bad. It's about noticing that the modern, packaged version of something is often trying, imperfectly, to recreate an effect. A simple, living plant, already provided for free, quietly growing in gardens for thousands of years, before anyone thought to bottle it, wax it, or put it in a tin. Let's come back to where we started. Carol, wide awake at midnight, scratching a bite that a 2-minute walk to her own front lawn could have solved, next to a citronella candle that had already burned out hours earlier without her noticing, and a hardy, strong-smelling shrub mentioned by name in the Gospel of Luke, still growing today, still doing quietly what people have relied on it to do for centuries, without ever needing a wick or a flame. If there's one thing to take from today, let it be this. Sometimes the answer isn't a candle at all. It's something simpler, growing quietly in a garden that's been doing the job since long before anyone thought to sell it back to us in a different form. This video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult a qualified professional before using any plant-based remedy, especially if you are pregnant, have sensitive skin, or have pets that may access the plant. If this kind of ancestral wisdom speaks to you, consider subscribing, because next time we're looking at a weapon the Byzantine Empire used for 800 years that was so effective and so secret, the formula disappeared when the empire fell. We'd love to have you along.